You and your brother stand clear. I got no interest in you today. Stand clear and you won't get hurt.
What's your intention? Do you think 1 on 4's a dog fall?
I mean to kill you in 1 minute, Ned. Or see you hanged in Fort Smith at Judge Parker's convenience. Which'll it be?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
I'm a little red rooster, too lazy to crow for days. I'm a little red rooster, too lazy to crow for days.
How do you get shirts so clean, Mr. Lee?
Ancient Chinese secret.
My husband, some hotshot. Here's his ancient Chinese secret.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is online, on-demand Fastener Talk Radio, so if you make your living in the screw business, this is the podcast for you, and we're so glad you clicked in, everybody. Eric Dudas here, and the co-host of Fully Threaded is with me as well. J.R. Prowl calls him the Muskinator. He's Brian Musker. Doing all right, Brian?
I am. Thank you, J.R. Prowl. I'm with you in spirit, actually in a different city, as everyone knows. I'm in FCH West, and you're in FCH East.
That is correct. Both, however, in the heart of the fastener industry.
That's right.
This is episode 113 of Fully Threaded Radio, and we're publishing this time on February 9th, 2017. The podcast has a bit of an international flavor to it this time, Bri.
Actually, it always has a bit of international flavor because fasteners are used all over the world.
Well, that's a good point. And on this episode, we'll explore some of the issues relating to that because they are many. We'll begin with a discussion with reshoring crusader Harry Moser. He's got observations on the U.S. pullout from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. A lot of people are talking about that one. We'll find out what Harry thinks. During the feature segment today, we'll be speaking with Rob Lucas of Lindstrom. It's been a while since we've talked with Rob on the podcast. As always, he's got lots of ideas, including his experiences with the Chinese New Year.
Okay.
During Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report, Würth Executive Vice President Marc Strandquist joins in. They dissect the latest Fastener Distributor Index numbers. Little bit of a surprise to many of us this time, Bri.
Yeah, to me included, incidentally.
We'll find out what happened in January with the FDI. Plus, Carmen Vertullo has the Fastener Training Minute. He discusses thread pitch and plating. There's a big gotcha there. Carmen tells us all about it.
This is Carmen's attempt to remove the predominant part of the predominantly fastener-related.
Oh, this is about as fastener-related as it gets.
Right.
And we're lucky to have him with us. We're also lucky to have a great lineup of sponsors. Bri, crow them out.
Well, I don't know if I'll crow them out. Okay. Yeah, we are. We're very lucky to have great sponsors. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Stellfast and the Lindstrom family of companies, including Titan Fasteners. Stellfast, for service you deserve and people you trust. And the Lindstrom family of companies, Lindstrom, by any measure. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio are 3Q, USA-made fasteners, Buckeye Fasteners, InSequel Software, the Würth Group, ND Industries, Fastener, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. Thanks to all of you, and we look forward to another great year with our great sponsors.
Yes, we do. Thank you, one and all. Thanks to you, too, folks, for clicking into the podcast. We look forward to hearing from you anytime. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. Our Twitter handle is fullythreaded.
And speaking of crowing, was that John Wayne playing Rooster Cogburn at the beginning of the show?
Ah, yes. You caught that. Well, I was digging deep for something having to do with the Year of the Rooster.
You were digging very deep, actually.
That's what we do here. And, of course, that was John Wayne playing Rooster Cogburn in the classic movie True Grit. So I thought it would plug in well with part of the theme of today's episode.
You're right, and it did.
Of course, by the time this episode is published and most of you are listening, the Chinese New Year will be recent history. Nevertheless, in case you were wondering, and this is according to Wikipedia now, Bry, source of all knowledge in the 21st century.
Yes, and for me too, okay.
We're either in the year 4713, 4712, or 4652, depending on the scholarship that you subscribe to.
Wow. So you could be like, your age could vary by 100 years.
Well, I hadn't thought of it that way. I just think that there's a little bit of disagreement with when the actual counting started, and all I can say is it makes you appreciate the Gregorian calendar.
Right, even when they had to reorganize it, and you realized that you'd had like 20 years cut off your life.
Are you talking about the shift from the Julian to the Gregorian?
Probably, yeah. When they realized they had to put in the extra day for leap year.
I'm just glad I was born in an era where all that was settled, at least for all the things that I care about.
Yeah, well, it could have been worse. I mean, the calendar could have been, in the Roman times, and whenever they had a new emperor, they just stuck another month in because he wanted, be it Julius for July or August or Augustus. So you could have had a year with 12 months or 10 months or whatever. And they didn't really even quite decide when the year started. It depended on other things.
Yeah, the business of date keeping has a checkered past, that's for sure. But I could tell you one thing, and that is that the Chinese zodiac is really cool. This, of course, is the year of the rooster. And there are 12 of these zodiac symbols in the calendar system. I happen to be the snake. I'm the snake, Bri.
Okay. I'm a rat, okay? And I never really liked being a rat. There were lots of other signs I could have been that would be better, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I like necessarily being a snake either. I mean, I was reading up on it, and it's not all that bad. I mean, there's some pretty cool things about it, but I don't know. People are afraid of snakes by and large. I mean, might be cool to be a horse.
Yeah. Well, they're not too cool on rats either, if you think about it.
Oh, that's true. I don't blame you. Especially, snakes eat rats.
I know.
Which, don't worry or anything, but, I'm just saying.
Thank you. Right. I've always had a precarious existence. I've known that.
I also noticed that there are a couple of dragons in our lives, and I think dragons trump everything, really, so we better stay out of their way.
Oh. The
lowly snake and the lowly rat could get eaten up by the dragon, or at least we could unleash a flamethrower attack on us, and nobody wants that.
So you're saying we know people that we call dragons, or who are dragons in the Chinese calendar?
Yeah, I'm not talking about dragon breath, Bri. That's, I think, year independent.
Okay.
This is going to be a very, very good, predominantly Fastener-related podcast for you folks, and fear not, we'll move off of the zodiac symbols for the moment, and we'll get back with you momentarily to put a wrench to this one.
Okay.
It's fully threaded.
Fastener Talk Radio. It's like feng shui for the fastener industry. Brian and Eric. Fully threaded radio.
You probably know that Lindstrom is an industry leader in metric fasteners. And there's a good chance you know we recently expanded to provide a wide range of high-grade inch fasteners. But what you probably don't know is that Lindstrom has made a serious commitment to earn your socket business. How serious? Well, let's start with 11,000 products. Announcing Lindstrom's expanded line of socket products, including socket head cap screws, flat head socket cap screws, button head socket cap screws, socket shoulder screws, and more. Plain, plated, or patched, in a full range of inch and metric sizes. Special lengths and thread pitches available through in-house fabrication. Always packed to your specification. Lindstrom. Flexibility, choice, and value at every turn. Here for everything distributors need. To learn more about Lindstrom and our expanded line of socket products, visit LindstromSockets.com. Lindstrom, by any measure. To speak with a sales representative, call 1-800-328-2430.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
Did you know Mexico accounts for 34% of all trade in Latin America? Hi, everybody. It's Lynn Dempsey, here to announce the meeting point for the Latin American fastener industry. It's Mac Brooks Fastener Fair Mexico, which takes place on June 20th and 21st, 2017, in Mexico City. Fastener Fair Mexico attracts manufacturers, distributors, suppliers, and end users from across Latin America's fastest-growing industries. With over 2,000 buyers, more than 200 exhibiting companies from around the world, and a highly informative distributor business development conference, this third edition of the show is set to be the biggest yet. As the leader in worldwide fastener exhibitions, Mac Brooks has pulled out all the stops to provide maximum value for any fastener distributor operating or considering doing business in Latin America. Don't miss Fastener Fair Mexico, June 20th and 21st in Mexico City. For booth space, details, and to register online, log on to www.fastenerfair.com/Mexico. That's fastenerfair.com/Mexico.
This is Rosa, the preferred riveter at Brighton Bass International. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio with Eric and Brian.
Brian and Eric, back with you on the online Fastener Super Slide, Fully Threaded.
Pretty wild ride.
Yes, it is. Speaking of wild rides, was following some links. I guess this was probably off the Drudge Report. I wound up on the New York Times website.
Oh, dear.
Yes. I guess they don't have too good a sense of irony over there, because I noticed there was an ad on the sidebar saying, again, this is on the New York Times. It said, "Truth, it's hard to find."
Right. Well, they would be meaning their truth, okay? That's a little, New York Times' truth is a little different to what many other people would define as truth.
I understand you're in a different reality when you're on that website.
Closer to the truth found in Mao's Little Red Book, I think.
Nevertheless, headlines flying all over regardless of the persuasion of the particular news source that you might be reading. Of course, you can't miss the headlines associated with all these executive orders that came out right after the new administration took control, including the one about the wall along the Mexico-U.S. border. What do you think, Bri? Is that going to get put up? What's going to happen with that whole thing?
Well, parts of it probably will be. I mean, he's sort of put himself into a corner. He has to do something because a lot of people are expecting that. It's a difficult sort of a problem, but I think he's going to. There's going to be some action, powerful relative to that, be it in the border guards and extensions of the wall, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There's got to be something done that's something above just a symbolic gesture, and I think you'll see that. Now, what actually unfolds, we don't know.
Right.
I can't tell you this, though, folks. Whether there's a wall or not, you'll be able to get down to Mexico City come June 20th and 21st, and you'll want to do that for Fastener Fair Mexico. That's coming up, being put on by Mac Brooks. Just about all the fastener business that's done in Mexico and in the rest of Latin America at some level is going to be represented at this show. So if you're doing anything down there, then you're certainly going to want to attend Fastener Fair Mexico.
We had a report from Rosa Hearn from Brighton Best last year because she was down at that show.
That's true. This will be the third rendition of that show, and we'll have somebody report to us. We'll talk to somebody from Mac Brooks ahead of it, but wanted to bring that out because it's coming up, and I mean, let's face it, with Mexico in the headlines so much, I mean, we certainly wanted to let everybody know that's going on. Hey everyone, most of you know by now, we're the people who bring you the FCH Sourcing Network. That's found at fastenersclearinghouse.com. It's a giant online resource anytime you need to find a hard-to-find or hard-to-locate fastener. Get out there. There's about 1.5 million line items out there. We'd also be glad to help you sell fasteners. And we've got a new utility available to help you do that, and it involves what we call deep linking. And through this system, when you've got inventory listed with FCH, we can help you drop customers right into your online fastener shopping cart system. This is a huge development. A lot of people are excited about it. A lot of fastener distributors are getting out there online to do business the e-commerce way, and FCH is right there to support you if you're one of them.
Right, it's pretty easy for you to do. You can either include it in the link in your upload, or you can include a formula that we can use to calculate it. And it shows up as when someone clicks on one of these lines to get the contact info. If there's a link registered against that item, then an extra button will turn up with just saying, "Hey, click here to buy this item now." It will take you straight from FCH straight over to the site of the company that's showing the item. Painless, pretty effective.
Get out to fastenersclearinghouse.com whenever you're looking for a part, and if we can help you to move inventory, get with us through the website. We'll tell you all about it. Lots of details that we can share with you.
Yeah.
You know, Bri, as the Fully Threaded Radio podcast grows and expands, we have more and more listeners from basically everywhere. I think we pointed out one time the only continent where we haven't had a listener so far is Antarctica.
Okay. Now you'd think in all their long winters they would be looking for things to listen to.
You know, that's a great point. Hadn't thought of it that way. But we do have folks pretty much everywhere else. And to folks everywhere, we sure do appreciate you tuning in. I'm sure you have your own reasons. And you'll probably have your own reactions when you listen to our discussion coming right up with Harry Moser. Now, for those of you who don't know Harry, he's been with us a couple of times previously, and we wanted to get him on for his reactions to particularly the U.S. pullout of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I think a lot of people have heard about it. They don't understand it very thoroughly, but Harry certainly has his ideas on it. This is a subject that I think we'll be talking about quite a bit more in ensuing episodes, and I think this is kind of a good leaping off point for the topic.
Yeah, well, Harry's been, talking to groups of people, including us at the Midwest Fastener Association, about the benefits of encouraging local manufacture as opposed to offshoring. And so this is a whole subject very near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, we first met him at an MWFA meeting several years back, and he's fighting that fight. He never stops.
Yeah.
Why don't we play that now, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Right.
Well, Bri, we mentioned at the top of the podcast a little bit about what's going on with Mexico in terms of the new administration. Also speculated on what might be happening in China. So a lot of things happening these days, aren't there, Bri? You have to have your head in the sand not to be reading the headlines.
Oh, you have to have your head deep in the sand, okay?
Of course, another one of the big ones is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And when the new administration came in, they, via executive order, pretty much pulled the U.S. out of that. We decided it would be a good time to check in on all of these things with our friend Harry Moser. He, of course, the crusader in the cause of reshoring through his organization, the Reshoring Initiative. He's joining us now. Harry Moser, welcome back to Fully Threaded.
Yeah, Eric and Brian, great to be here.
Glad to have you back. It's been a while. Maybe we've got some new things to talk about now.
Yeah, lots going on.
Good.
That's right. Well, as you heard that preamble, I guess one of the biggies is the TPP. I know it's probably not directly related to reshoring, but it certainly will impact it a lot. I mean, what's your overall feeling on that development?
On TPP, I was against TPP. Most of the groups that I'm affiliated with were against it. And basically, historically, most trade agreements that we've made, our trade deficit gets bigger with those countries, and it gets bigger with them faster than it does with companies with which we do not, or countries with which we do not have trade agreements. So historically, trade agreements have not been in the interest of U.S. manufacturing. Sometimes they've been in the interest of U.S. diplomacy. They've gotten countries to affiliate with us instead of Russia or China, or do something like that, but almost always at the expense of U.S. manufacturing. So we're overall pleased that it went down. Our strategy is that the U.S. should take the steps to become competitive in manufacturing, at least for supplying the U.S.
Yep.
In other words, competitive enough to eliminate the $500 billion per year trade deficit. And once we've done that, then eliminating tariffs, forming closer ties, et cetera, makes sense. But until you can at least be competitive in your own market, opening your market wider by reducing tariffs isn't a winning strategy.
It's a little bit hard to measure becoming competitive, though, isn't it? Because that implies that all governments keep their hands off subsidizing domestic production. Which probably is not the case in China, is it?
Yeah, we're working on what we call a competitiveness toolkit. And when we finish it, we intend to offer it to Trump and Congress. And it lists 6 or 8 actions that we can take, like a much better skilled workforce, like the German model, say, the Swiss model, a lower dollar, the dollar's grossly overvalued, a lower corporate income tax rates, a value-added tax or border adjustment tax, less regulation, lower healthcare costs, educating companies on using total cost. That's our model. And the idea is to say, to calculate for each of those how much price competitiveness we will achieve, and then from our TCO user database, we know how unpriced competitive we are. We know how big the gap is with, say, China, and therefore we hope to be able to tell Trump, tell me how many jobs you want to bring back. Okay, that means you need X points of price competitiveness improvement. Pick from this list the ones you think you can get through Congress and go ahead with them, and you'll get those jobs back.
We're going to point listeners in the direction of your Reshoring Initiative later in the conversation, and this certainly is a huge topic area, so we could easily probably chew up an hour or more talking about it and go off in all kinds of directions. Instead of doing that, though, let's quickly point out that the TPP was a multilateral trade agreement, so-called, and it did not in its first rendition include China, although it definitely left a back door for it because it essentially took sovereignty away from the U.S. and all the others and put it in the hands of an international trade court, if you will, and that made a lot of people really scared. Having said that, in general, you are on record as having said that globalization has peaked. And what exactly do you mean by that? How do you think that's happening, and what's the fallout for the U.S.?
Well, quantitatively, the amount of trade, the amount of international shipping, the imports and exports plateaued, I think, in 2016. It had been growing at, 3, 4, 5% per year, and now have plateaued. Why? Because companies are starting to have a localization strategy, producing in the U.S. for North America, in China for Asia, in Germany for Europe, et cetera. And rather than shipping so much from one location all across the world, China has lost some of its competitiveness because their wages going up so much. So because of a series of those factors, globalization no longer seems inevitable, no longer seems clear that China will continue to dominate manufacturing, and that the container boats will cover the oceans, so to speak.
So you would think that there were some late night, sleepless nights at the latest Davos conference then, most of whom believe that they should be running the world.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's also point out, Harry, that you're speaking broadly in terms of in all industrial sectors. Our audience is fairly narrowly focused on fastener industry. So your comments here are rather high level, shall we say. But please do continue on with that. What further trends, what deeper trends can you inform us about?
Well, certainly one competitive trend is Mexico, because the Mexican wages are about the same as China, and the Mexican currency has dropped about 50% in the last couple of years, which has made them even more competitive. And they're closer and easier to work with in a sense. So Mexico is an alternative. So when work comes out of China, some of it goes into Mexico, and that's why Trump gets all worked up, because so much work, automotive, especially good high-paid automotive jobs, have gone into Mexico. And so I think if I were Trump, I'd be working more closely with Mexico and developing a policy of getting the work out of China and India and into North America, including some into Mexico, some U.S., some Canada. Build up North America by bringing back much of what we had previously lost to Asia.
Now, during previous conversations, you have distinguished between reshoring and nearshoring. And I'm going to add a term to that lexicon and say that when we bring it to the U.S., not just to North America, I'm going to call it here-shoring. So is there a difference or a benefit then? I guess there is, in your mind, from bringing it from China to Mexico, or is that an intermediate step to bringing it back to the U.S.?
We say come back to the U.S. as reshoring. If you come partially back, you get nearshored, say, to Mexico or Canada. The advantage, if the only way to get it to North America is to take it to Mexico, that's better than leaving it in China, because for Chinese product, about 5% of the content is made in USA, whereas for Mexican product, about 40% is made in USA. Components that are shipped down there, tools that go down there to produce the product. So I'd much rather have it in Mexico than in China. And obviously, in general, I'd rather have it in the U.S. than Mexico, but I'll settle for 40% of a loaf instead of 5% of a loaf.
So maybe you need to go to New York and have a talk to Trump then, because might be a slightly different view to he's been espousing.
So I would just on the Mexico subject, I spoke at a conference in Monterey last year, and they were all excited about shipping more and more to the U.S. And I said, well, you got to be careful. The U.S. is going to get tired of that. Somebody's going to come along and tell you they don't want any more coming up from Mexico. And instead of increasing your $60 billion per year trade surplus with the U.S., why don't you work in Mexico to eliminate your $60 billion per year trade deficit with China? So produce in Mexico much of what you're now importing from China, instead of working so hard to ship more and more to the U.S. because eventually the U.S. is going to slam the border on you, as Trump is more or less trying to do.
That's really interesting. Well, let's drill into that, because the tool in his toolbox for that is tariffs. At least that's what has been bandied about in the headlines. And a few moments ago, you were discussing tariffs in lieu of TPP as well. It sounded like you were pro-tariff. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I prefer the other actions that I've mentioned. The skilled workforce is always number one for me. Lower corporate taxes, lower regulations, that whole range of things. Rather than tariffs, I would have either a value-added tax or this border adjustment tax that the Republicans have proposed. And the benefit of that, with a tariff, we charge X%, 5%, 10%, whatever on the product that's being imported. Whereas with the border adjustment tax, like the value-added tax, we would charge, let's say, 15% on everything being imported, and we would credit everything being exported from the U.S. with a 15% tax credit. So the advantage is not only do you make us more competitive in the U.S. against imports, just like essentially every other country in the world does, except the U.S., but you make our exports more competitive in their markets, just like every other country in the U.S. except the U.S. does. So, and I don't see how the other countries can complain, because we're doing essentially exactly what they've done.
Don't expect that they won't complain, though. Okay, I mean, they've been doing largely that's what China does, has been totally hidden, and everyone sort of has been bitching at the U.S. about its stance, but it's trying to create a level playing field of which there is not one.
Well, I can see how the offsetting export makes it different from a straight tariff, but other than that, isn't that just a semantical difference? And doesn't that just equate to a tax on U.S. consumers for imported products? I mean, isn't that really the bottom line on all that?
Well, clearly, any tariff you put on, whether it's a value-added tax or a regular tariff, the prices are going to go up somewhat in the U.S. I don't think they have to go up too much, though. I think if you have the dollar down to a reasonable level and you apply these things, I think at 5 or 10% higher, U.S. manufacturers are competitive. You don't have to go up 20%, 30%. You're not going to see things in Walmart go up by 20, 30%. Maybe over a couple of years, they'll go up by 5%, something like that. And the question is that worth it to have 4 million more manufacturing jobs and say 12 million more total jobs in the U.S. at good wage levels? I'd say yes. A one-time increase in prices. Some people might say no, but I'd say if you don't do it, your manufacturing content of your economy continually declines to the point where you can't even defend yourself. And so to me, at some point you got to say this is enough. We've been the sucker for the rest of the world for long enough. It's time to take care of mama.
There are many, many economists that share that view. Let's ask you one more question, Harry Moser, Reshoring Initiative. You were commenting before we started recording that U.S. consumers and politicians are increasingly focused on made in the USA. How are you seeing that?
Politicians, certainly, almost all of them want made in USA. The question is, are they willing to pay the price? Are they willing to have some higher consumer prices? Are they willing to shift resources from training additional philosophers and anthropologists to training more tool makers and welders and robot engineers and so on? So the thing I liked about Trump is that he's breaking the mold, so to speak. He's getting us out of the trajectory we were in and trying a new one. And it may fail. It may be a total disaster when it's all done. But we know that if we continued in the path we were on over the next 20, 30 years, it was going to be a failure. And so at least now you've got a chance of success instead of almost no chance. So I'm willing to give him a chance to make it happen.
Well, it seems to me there's a fair number of things you have in common with the current administration, the new administration. I gathered from just yesterday there were some comments about Mr. Trump suggesting that the price of our dollar is wildly overvalued and it needs to drop significantly. which would make all of our exports much more competitive, but won't help anyone who enjoys the fact that they go over to Europe and their dollar's nearly on par with the euro.
Yeah, well, when they go to Europe, they're offshoring their vacation. Maybe that'll convince them to stay here in the U.S. Let me tell you one story I'm especially proud of. We have a Chicago area company called Mori Corp. They make populated printed circuit boards. They're an EMS company, and the VP sales came to me about 9 months ago. They were about to lose an order from a U.S. customer. They were about to lose it to a lower-priced Chinese competitor. And so the VP sales and I together used our TCO estimator to understand all the relevant costs, what we call the hidden costs, that the customer had been ignoring. He took the calculation into the customer, and I've got a quote from him that doing that was key to saving a $60 million order.
Wow.
So my point of bringing that up is to get people's attention and to let your listeners know if they are competing with offshore, if they're trying to sell to the fastener distributor who says, yeah, I can get it from China for 10% less, I can whatever. Well, make sure that distributor, that customer has done the math, that they've looked at all of the relevant costs and risks and have made the right decision. It could be they've made the right decision, but if they haven't done the math, they don't know. So we're here to help. The TCO estimator is online at www.reshorenow.org, and anybody needs our help can email or call me, and I'm happy to help them. That's my job.
You should have your own podcast, Harry, because that's usually where I jump in, and you took care of business for me. Thank you.
Right.
I've got one last story I want to tell you, if I may.
Fire away.
So you've all read the articles about Carrier and companies like that where Trump has gotten involved.
Yeah.
And so when we find articles like that, we post a comment at the end of it, something like, this is a message to companies that are considering announcing offshoring. You should come to our website, use the TCO estimator. You may find it's more profitable to stay here. You have to ask yourself, is it better to do the math today or get a tweet from Donald tomorrow?
Doing the math is much better, I think, okay?
That rather than face the public humiliation of the Twittersphere, yes.
Yeah. Especially if there's no reason to do it, because the math, when you do the math, you find out there's no reason to go.
Yeah.
More and more companies have been using this TCO estimator. And by the way, good job on your website. I see that you revamped it since last time I went out there. Again, folks, that's reshorenow.org, and you can use that tool online, no charge. Harry Moser, Reshoring Initiative, thank you so much for joining us once again. We always enjoy hearing your perspectives.
Thank you, guys. Honored to be here. Call me anytime.
Will do. Okay, so thank you.
Thanks for your fight.
And we'll be back in one moment with more Fully Threaded Radio.
Online Fastener Talk Radio. Hey, at least it kills time on long road trips. Fully Threaded Radio.
ND Industries has been solving customers' toughest problems through innovative technologies, competitive pricing, and industry-leading service since 1955. A family-owned business, ND Industries manufactures and applies fastener locking, bonding, sealing, masking, and assembling products. Their pre-application process makes fasteners ready to use at the point of assembly, resulting in reduced labor costs, time savings, and superior quality assurance. As a fully integrated company, ND handles all aspects of operations, from formulating custom chemical compounds and coating fasteners to providing inline inspection, packaging, and delivery services. ND Industries serves the global market with 13 divisions in the continental U.S. and also facilities in Taiwan, China, and Turkey. Learn more about ND Industries at our website at www.ndindustries.com. ND Industries, innovative technologies, competitive pricing, and industry-leading service. Contact ND today.
Searching for a quality supplier of cold form parts in the new year? then you should give my friends at 3Q a call. Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker, and if you're a distributor handling shoulder bolts, double-end studs, weld studs, knurled bolts, or other cold form threaded fasteners, then the people at 3Q will provide you the highest quality products with an outstanding customer service. Also specialising in SEMS washers, double coil lock washers, sheet metal screws and other specials, 3Q has been building its reputation as a specialty fastener distributor since 2008. Check 3Q online, then give them a call today. www.3q-inc.com. That's the number 3, letter Q-inc.com. 3Q, quality service for quality customers.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stelfast. Since 1976, Stelfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stelfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stelfast today through our website at www.stelfast.com and put us to work for you. Stelfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
My customer sent me a print for a bolt specifically for the machine in his shop, but we can't make it.
Solution man, Ken. Provide me with a print, and my superhuman CNC machining team will custom make it for you faster than a manufacturer's rep drinking at an open bar. Visit the Solution Industries website for details at solutionind.com.
Wow, that is fast.
So are you at the distributive social, huh?
This is Gary Plipnick from Fastenal. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Brian and Eric, your online brothers in thread, back with you.
Right.
This is the part of the show where we eagerly are anticipating the Fastener News Report. One of the reasons is that we get to hear the Fastener Distributor Index results from the previous month. I'd like to point out to everybody that the validity of the FDI is a direct result to the amount of participation that we get. Essentially, if you haven't guessed by now, folks, what we're saying is if you're a North American fastener distributor, please help us along with the Fastener Distributor Index monthly survey.
Right. Help your industry, actually. It's not only just us. I mean, this is a service, and hopefully it's a useful number. I mean, it should be a number that tells you whether you're in the thick of things or whether, something isn't going right.
It's a benchmark, and we're in our 6th year of gathering data. We're announcing a new component to the index this month, which is very cool. The website to take advantage of all this is www.fdisurvey.com. Get out there, request an invitation. We'll send you login info and shoot you off a reminder every month. It's the Fastener Distributor Index.
It is. And probably for the last 5 years, you actually could fill in the survey on your phone. Whether you choose to is not a matter. Other of these things in the industry that phone-enabled, hardly ever used.
Brian C. Musker. The C is for convenience.
Right.
I will also take a moment to remind everybody that Fastener Tech 17 is coming up. That's happening June 5th through the 7th in Rosemont, Illinois. And the Fastener Industry Coalition has announced a pretty exciting event that they're having. They're calling it the Fastener Summit. Mike McNulty will be talking a little bit about this. You can get details, however, at the FIC website. That's fastenercoalition.org. And they have a schedule of the lineup that they're having then. This is on June 7th, I'm talking. Now, for those of you who are really into this whole thing, it's a good segue, The MWFA golf event happens on June 8th. So if you're planning on being in the Chicago area anyway, cooling your heels waiting for golf, you should definitely be taking advantage of the Fastener Industry Summit.
Okay, so it's no excuse for me then, is there?
You know, Bri, while I was looking up information on the Fastener Tech event this year, I noticed Mike McNulty put a very cool flipbook version of his Fastener News Report right on the homepage of FastenerTech.com.
Oh, okay. It must have been put in since I was there, because I was looking at the Fastener Tech so we could get hold of Nancy.
It's a new feature, and it does a very good job of presenting the Fastener News Report. So if you haven't checked that out,
do it.
That's right, do it. The Fastener News Report's coming up in just a moment, and that's sponsored today by Volt Industrial Plastics and Fastenal. For Fastenal observers, I'd like to point out an interesting story that appeared in Industrial Distribution magazine. This is on the Industrial Distribution website. Came out, I believe, on February 2nd by the author Mike Hockett. Headline is Fastenal adds nearly 400 store personnel in January as sales growth persists.
Huh, okay.
Upbeat headline.
Yep.
Now, one of the reasons I'm throwing this out there is because the FDI is coming out. I want to see how people are comparing themselves to one of the big boys of the business. Story begins, the company posted January sales of $336 million, up 9% overall from a year earlier.
Okay.
336, folks. Something to shoot for.
Yeah.
It marked 7 straight months of year-over-year daily sales growth for Fastenal and a healthy start to 2017, I'll say.
Wow.
Fastenal's January daily sales of fasteners declined by 1.9% year-over-year, while other sales grew by 7.1%. See, I thought I'd seen some contradicting headlines in the recent days, and you get them all muddled up, but that's what it is. So their fastener business took a little bit of a hit.
Right. So they're taking great benefit from their sales of all the other industrial hardware stuff. The same market that BBI is moving into, isn't it?
That's right. Jun Zhu was on the podcast recently, was describing that.
Yeah.
Story goes on, those figures compare with December's decline of 2.7% for fasteners and an identical 7.1% growth for other sales. So that's 2 months of that.
Right.
Looks like a trend.
We want more than 2 months for a trend, but it's a very interesting change.
Again, I thought I would mention that because we do have a lot of Fastenal observers here on the podcast. Also a lot of plays from Winona,
right?
To be honest with you. But also we have the FDI coming up, so everyone, let's see what those numbers look like relative to the broader index.
Yeah.
Get with us anytime, folks. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. We're also out there on Twitter. The handle's fullythreaded. And now, without further ado...
Here's news about screws you can use.
Correct you are, amigo. Here he is, Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored today by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. Super Bowl 51 was an epic and historical event, not just for the terrific Patriots comeback or for the record-breaking number of victories for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but for the high volume of boring and lecturing commercials produced by self-righteous corporations and the ironic presence of a high number of former Cleveland Browns players and coaches on the field and in the coaching boxes and dressed in Patriots and Falcons gear. But I am happy to be in America and still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, we're going to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story on the Rockford Products Auction and newsmaker headlines from Beacon Fasteners, Cable Tie Express, Ameribolt, the Würth Group, GL Hewitt, SFS, Sormat, and the EJOT Group. On the back page report, we're going to talk about the upcoming Fastener Industry Summit from the FIC. We will get to all of that and last month's FDI results right after this.
Volt Industrial Plastics is the source for all your high-quality plastic fastener needs, and customer service is their #1 priority. With almost 1 million fasteners in stock and same-day shipping on stock items, Volt Industrial Plastics carries inventory so you don't have to. Volt manufactures everything in-house from over 125 different materials, and they're proud to say 100% of their products are American-made. And of course, custom tooling and in-house bagging is available. Contact Volt online at www.voltplastics.com. Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
For a selection of hundreds of thousands of fasteners, check out your local Fastenal store or fastenal.com. We can stock domestic or internationally sourced product locally and keep your bin stock filled for you at no additional expense. We are a 9001-2008 certified company that's made a huge investment in quality control so you don't have to. And if you can't find it on our shelf, we can make it for you at the quantity you need at one of our many manufacturing facilities. Learn more by contacting your local Fastenal store or visiting fastenal.com today.
Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been servicing the fastener community since 1905. An employee-owned company for 33 years, we take great pride in the quality of products we sell, offering outstanding customer service from our very knowledgeable sales team members. Our standard product lines include graded weld screws, resistance weld fasteners, leg levelers, tube inserts, clevis pins, and various other fasteners. We have complete custom manufacturing capabilities in low carbon, medium carbon, and stainless steel materials, and our quality systems are registered to ISO standards. We also have an entire team of sourcing specialists able to locate those hard-to-find items with typically smaller minimums and shorter lead times than that of our competition. We offer same-day shipments from one of our warehouses, strategically located throughout the United States and Canada, enabling us to fulfill all your fastener needs in a very timely manner. To find out more about Buckeye Fasteners, please call us at 800-437-1689 or visit us on the web at buckeyefasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, product support from development to implementation.
Back to the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty.
In January, the FDI dropped to 49.9, a bit of a disappointment compared to December's result of 51.6. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network, the National Fastener Distributors Association, and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to Marc Strandquist, Executive Vice President of the Würth Group and current NFDA President. Hi, Marc. Thanks for joining us today on the Fastener News Report.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Like the opportunity to reflect a little bit on these survey results.
So what's your opinion or your reflection on FDI results for January?
Well, I think that this is an interesting time that we live in, and I think post-election we hear out in the marketplace a lot of optimism, but that optimism hasn't translated into orders. You know, we're seeing bits and pieces of activity, and some areas are starting to pick up, but overall it's not. And I think that score reflects a little bit about what's going on, that, you know, the new administration, you know, talks about less regulations and cutting taxes. And I think everybody is waiting to see that. And I think there's been activity with a lot of companies that are promising to put jobs either back into the United States or create more jobs with new plants. And I think all that is very promising. But I think right now everybody's anxious to actually see something happen. And the current discord, you know, within the federal government, I think is still a sense of frustration for everybody in terms of rebuilding that confidence. And I think the quicker we get by all this and we start to focus on the task at hand, I think that'll reflect itself in the economy.
Yeah, I mean, the optimism is there. I agree, but it does take a long time to get the wheels of government changing direction. So, kind of a massive undertaking. So, I think you made a good comment that it's the optimism there, but the reality has not hit the ground yet.
No, we just haven't seen the orders come through in a consistent basis, you know, across the board. Again, there's pockets. You know, this morning there was an excellent series of articles talking about the infrastructure projects that was part of the platform that President Trump had, you know, trying to put together $1 trillion worth. And all the governors, I guess the National Governors Association has submitted that list. Every state has submitted a list of infrastructure projects. That would be a huge boon to many of our companies within the industrial distribution base to be able to support that. You know, we have the new pipeline that they're trying to get that going. That'll create jobs and consume fasteners. But at the same time, there was an article that I had read this morning about farmers, and that for the fourth year in a row, there's been a reduction in income. While there was record crops and last year, but the prices are so low that the income for the farmers continues to drop. And I think it's less than half of what it was 4 years ago. It's all part of the mixed results that are out there.
Right. So, yeah, the December was a big jump up. And so I think I was personally expecting it to continue in January, but it does make sense that it's tempering reality to expectations. And that ties into the 6-month outlook for the January was, if you look at the higher and same expectations for 6 months down the road, it's 97%, which is the highest 6-month outlook that we've had since the FDI has been in existence. So that's a pretty optimistic outlook.
Well, I would think we all feel the same way. I mean, we think that the different initiatives that are being talked about would just have to be executed, and I think that'll help everybody. And I think the optimism is out there. We talked to a lot of people in a lot of different markets, whether it's agriculture, construction, automotive, any of the transportations, HVAC, a whole variety of them, and everybody's expressing the optimism. So it's just a matter of seeing it happen.
Also tying into that, in the last episode, the Baird analyst introduced a new indicator called the FDI forward-looking indicator that they started to put together. And this is the first month of them reporting this, which it's included in the FDI report that goes out to all the people that participate in it. And this indicator called the FLI is based on a weighted average of forward-looking inputs from the FDI, and anything over 50 is strength. Anything below is weakness, and the result for January was 59.8, and they also calculated the same number for December, and that was 57.6. And compared to a year ago, the FDI average from the forward-looking average from January 16 through October 16 was 48.5. So that also ties into the optimistic, looking down the road values.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah,
absolutely
it's giant,
huge.
yeah.
So I hope. Again, all that optimism translates into orders, and we'll all be happy.
We also get people write in comments, and I'm going to go present a couple of those. Somebody said that January was unexpectedly busy, but they're not complaining. And then somebody else wrote in, quoting, but no slew of additional orders yet. RFQs make me optimistic, though. So more of the same, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen a lot of the same things.
All right, then inside the details, it looks like unemployment and deliveries. Unemployment was a better result in January employment was better in January than December, and inventories and deliveries stayed about the same. What about pricing? What are you hearing about pricing? Any movement there?
Well, we are hearing from the Asian sources and from some of the U.S. in terms of steel that suppliers are trying to pass through price increases, some successfully, some not. Some of them are justified, some are not. It depends, whether it's stainless or regular non-carbon steel. But we are seeing a push across the board in terms of raw materials. So that's something everybody should be aware of. In a way, it's a leading indicator of, consumption and capacity being used up, and therefore the steel mills feel that they can increase their prices, And so I think that is something that's definitely going to be an impact for 2017 is the inflationary pressures from raw material.
All right, well, good. Well, the last thing I notice here to wrap it up is in the report from Baird, the analyst is David Manthe. He says, while industrial markets are showing encouraging signs of potential stabilization and increased optimism, the FDI indicates that current conditions remain choppy with relatively weak demand. Competitive conditions and pricing pressure continue to weigh on the results before, as you said, policy changes can be implemented. So good things to come, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. We've got to be patient.
We do.
Yeah. Good. Coming up in the report, we have some news items from Würth with some activities in Switzerland and Russia, as well as some new hires. So it looks like you guys are keeping busy.
Yeah, the Würth group is. We had an excellent year last year on a global basis, even though the U.S. was slower. This year started out very nicely. We had an excellent January where sales were 8% ahead of last year's January. So things are going well on a global basis for the group.
Good. That's good to hear. I see your guys' name in the news a lot, and that's a good thing on the positive side. Well, thanks for joining us to discuss the FDI on the Fastener News Report, and we hope to talk to you down the road with some even better results.
Sounds great. Have a great day, everybody.
That was Marc Strandquist, the Executive Vice President of the Würth Group and current NFDA President. The FDI number for January was 49.9. If you want to participate in the process and get the report from Baird, visit www.fdisurvey.com. Now for today's top story. The largest auction of fastener manufacturing equipment in 30 years is scheduled for February 14th, 15th, and 16th in Rockford, Illinois. The Rockford Products Equipment Sale was announced by the PPL Group, which is conducting the auction jointly with Capital Recovery Group and Raven Worldwide. Founded in 1929, Rockford Products became one of the world's leading manufacturers of fasteners and cold-form components, employing 650 people in a 500,000 square foot fastener factory. In 2007, private equity firm Black Eagle Partners bought the company for $23 million at a bankruptcy auction, but soft sales ultimately led to a loan default that forced the company to seek a change in ownership or liquidation. After its restructuring efforts failed, Rockford Products closed down in September of 2016. Visit pplauctions.com for details on this huge equipment sale. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In personnel news, Beacon Fasteners and Components has announced Tony Van Hooser of Applied Design and Fastening Solutions as its manufacturer's representative for Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, and Southern Illinois. James Province has assumed the role of president of Ameribolt. Cable Tie Express's founder Char Cooper has announced 3 promotions. Ty Whitaker becomes president, Doug Andrews is the new chief operations officer, and Jason Burton is now the national sales and marketing manager. Thomas Ekstrom, chief financial officer, will leave the Bufab Group at the end of July to pursue an outside opportunity. Würth Adams has named Rick Frank as its new managing director following the retirement of Gary Huck at the end of 2016, and Würth Industry North America has welcomed managing director Tino Shablow and director of quality management Rob Girdley to their new positions. In acquisitions and expansion news, GL Hewitt has purchased the Keystock business and associated trademarks from ITW Shakeproof Industrial Products, including the trade name Make-A-Key. SF Group is investing 36 million Swiss francs in logistics improvements and heat treatment equipment upgrades at major sites in Switzerland. The EJOT Group in Germany is expanding its building fasteners division with the acquisition of Sormat, a supplier of fastening and anchoring technology based in Finland. The Swiss branch of the Würth Group is investing over 10 million euros to modernize its warehouse and logistics facilities. And at the end of 2016, Würth Russia celebrated the opening of a new logistics center in St. Petersburg. Finally, let's turn to the back page to talk about the FIC Fastener Industry Summit. The Fastener Industry Coalition, also known as the FIC, is sponsoring and producing its first Fastener Industry Summit on June 7, 2017 at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center, immediately following the conclusion of Fastener Tech 17. The Fastener Industry Trade event held every other year in Rosemont, Illinois. The Fastener Industry Summit will include several presentations relevant to all segments of the fastener industry. Programs will include Government Relations by the Lauren Baker Group, Market Research by the Fredonia Group, Training for the Fastener Industry by Rock Valley College Manufacturing Training Center, and a Sales and Management keynote presentation by Bob Davies, a motivational keynote speaker, author, trainer, and coach known for his ability to connect with crowds through humor while teaching them how to achieve career goals. His topic will be the 1.2% factor, how one small change leads to large results. Now, I'm impressed with the addition of this high-content summit to the regular lineup of fastener industry exhibits, education sessions, and networking opportunities normally offered at Fastener Tech events, which are co-produced by the Midwest Fastener Association and Fastener Technology International magazine. Registration for the FIC's Fastener Industry Summit is possible through the Fastener Tech 17 registration process found on the show producer websites mwfa.net and fastenertech.com. Thanks to the support of a long list of sponsors, the registration fee for the summit is just $150 for the first attendee from a company and only $100 for each additional person from the same firm. Current sponsors include the Fastener Education Foundation, the Industrial Fasteners Institute, the NFDA, the MWFA, the Mid-Atlantic Fastener Distributors Association, the New England Fastener Distributors Association, the North Coast Fastener Association, the Southeast Fastener Association, and the Wi-Fi, the Women in the Fastener Industry Group. Additional sponsorships are available and include free passes to the summit as well as promotional opportunities. Congratulations to everyone involved in planning the Fastener Industry Summit. You can get details on all of these stories and more in the Fastener Technology International magazine and its companion publication, the Fastener News Report newsletter, now available in a flipbook edition. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
Up next, it's Fastener Industry adventurer Rob Lucas. Stick around. It's Fully Threaded.
Are you tired of empty promises from software vendors? Are you paying for support that you're not receiving? Is it time for another paid upgrade? There is a solution. InSequel delivers quality software designed for the fastener industry at an affordable price with industry-leading support. Unlike other software companies, with InSequel, you purchase your software once. There will never be a paid upgrade. If you need assistance with anything, InSequel is there to help. When you call, you will always speak with a real person offering you quick and knowledgeable answers to your questions. Can your current provider say this? Quality software, affordable pricing, industry-leading support. Only InSequel can deliver all three. So why settle? Call InSequel Software at 877-446-9775 or visit www.inxsql.com.
Searching for a quality supplier of cold form parts in the new year? Then you should give my friends at 3Q a call. Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker. And if you're a distributor handling shoulder bolts, double end studs, weld studs, knurled bolts, or other cold form threaded fasteners, then the people at 3Q will provide you the highest quality products with an outstanding customer service. Also specialising in SEMS washers, double coil lock washers, sheet metal screws and other specials, 3Q has been building its reputation as a specialty fastener distributor since 2008. Check 3Q online, then give them a call today. www.3q-inc.com. That's the number 3, letter Q-inc.com. 3Q, quality service for quality customers.
I know my customers' yearly usage, but I don't have the warehouse space to store it.
Solution Man can. Submit a blanket order, and I'll not only set up release dates, I'll offer you bulk pricing too. Visit the Solution Industries website for details at solutionind.com.
You're my fastener superhero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
Oh, hey, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Carver Fact Center in El Cajon and with the Fastener Training Institute. I recently had an inquiry from one of my clients. Their concern was that one of their customers asked them to put an excessively thick coating of electroless nickel, in this case, on a screw thread, and they were concerned about the thread fit. Well, coating does have an effect on thread fit, and more so than any other part of the fastener. When we return with the Fastener Training Minute, we're going to tell you what that effect is and why it's really important that you understand it.
Thanks, Carmen. This is Joe Morris with the Fastener Training Institute. February may be our shortest month of the year, but that does not mean that the Fastener Training Institute is short on training opportunities. February and March are full for us. Join us February 14th in Santa Fe Springs, California for Product Training Part 2. Come on, do you know the difference between a tap-tight and a TT screw? And why must high-strength parts be baked after plating? Well, attend Product Training Part 2 to find out the answers to these and other commonly asked fastener questions. On February 24th, join Carmen Vertullo as he presents the webinar, IFI Critical Fastener Facts Every Supplier Should Know. There is so much to know about fasteners. How do we sort the critical information from the esoteric from the trivial? Well, an IFI has published a booklet authored by Joe Greenslade, retired IFI Director of Engineering Technology, on this very topic. Carmen's going to guide us through these critical facts in a fun format that you will not want to miss. If you know Joe Greenslade, you know he is one of our industry's most prolific provider of fastener technical knowledge. And if you don't know Joe, this is your chance for you to capture a piece of his amazing legacy. Closing the month of February for us is Fastener Training Week in Los Angeles, California. There's still time to register and take advantage of the opportunity to learn from our industry experts as they teach topics ranging from thread specifications to print reading and torque tension. Fastener Training Week consists of 5 intense days of education and plant tours. Our instructors are going to be Carmen Vertullo, Lawrence Klaus, and Salim Brahimi. Jumping into March, when it is cold in most of the U.S., come back to California for warmth and product training part 3. In this class, you're going to learn about pins, anchors, rivets, metrics, and much more. If you don't know the difference between inch and metric fasteners, you absolutely need to attend this class. Remember, the difference between you and the competition is employee skill, knowledge, and productivity. Invest some time into training. As always, if you have questions or suggestions, please reach out to us. For a complete listing of all of our classes, please visit our website at www.fastenertraining.com or email me at jom@fastenertraining.com. Now back to Carmen.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo with the second half of our Fastener Training Minute, explaining to you the effect of thread coating thickness on thread fit. Now, if you happen to have a copy of the Fastener Technology Handbook from the IFI, that's the black book, and you turn to page 62, there's a very good illustration of what I'm about to explain to you, and it helps to have an illustration in front of you because it's a little bit complicated. There's some math involved. I'm not going to explain the math, but the illustration does. So here's what happens. Imagine that you are just going to put a coating down on a flat piece of metal, just the surface, and that coating is going to be 1/10,000th of an inch thick. If you measure that surface before and after, or the thickness of that plate before and after the coating, and the coating's only on one side, then obviously the thickness is going to change by the amount of that coating, or 1/10,000th of an inch. If we plate both sides of that part, then it's going to change by 2/10,000ths of an inch. And that's the effect that plating would have on the diameter of a screw or a screw head or something where we're measuring both sides. It's going to be double the coating thickness. So if you just have a rod or a pin and you put a 10,000ths of thickness coating on it, it's going to change the diameter by 2/10,000ths, increasing it. Threads are different, though. Because threads have a 60-degree angle and we're measuring, of course, both sides, we end up with a exaggerated amount of effect on what's called the pitch diameter, or the primary measurement that we take on threads for functional fit. And the way to think about this is, imagine that you are, and we're going to do a little bit of, I guess, theater of the mind here because we don't have a screen for you to look at. But if you have page 62 of the Fastener Technology Handbook open, you'll be able to see this. Imagine that you are measuring the thickness of a layer of snow that's just fallen, or I guess we would call that depth. If you go out on your sidewalk and stick a ruler in that thing and it comes up to 2 inches, you think 2 inches of snow has fallen. So now go up on your roof that has a 60-degree pitch, similar to a 60-degree thread, and measure the snow thickness again, putting the ruler perpendicular to the earth. That is not perpendicular to the roof, but straight up and down. Now you're piercing that layer of snow, if you haven't fallen off the roof on your ass yet. You're piercing that layer of snow in such a way that it's much thicker. It's in fact 2 times as thick going straight down as it would be going perpendicular to the roof. And that is the reason why we end up with an effect on pitch diameter of 4 times the plating thickness anytime we put plating on screw threads, because it's twice the thickness because of the fact that we're going on this diagonal of 60 degrees, plus it's on 2 sides of the thread. So that's why thread fit is an important issue when plating fasteners. It's why we must be very careful not overplate and gauge. And it's also why, for the most part, coating thicknesses on screw threads are restricted to relatively thin coatings of a 10,000 to a few 10,000ths of an inch thick. Well, that's our Fastener Training Minute. And once again, if you want the details on that, the Fastener Technology Handbook, page 62, has a very nice illustration, or you can just email me or contact me anyway, and I will send it to you. This has been Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, Fastener Training Institute. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Clayton Allen from Buckeye Fasteners in Cleveland, Ohio, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you. Hey, I'd like to take this opportunity to reach out to some of our listeners out there in Asia, of which there are many these days. A lot of people in the various countries in Asia that listen to the podcast, as you know, Bri. And, of course, they've got their New Year's celebration going on right now, Chinese New Year.
Right. And it's apparently going to affect the whole labour market in China yet again when they all go back to work and decide they want more money.
There's a lot of tumult surrounding this particular celebration. I was reading up on it a little bit, and apparently it does spill over into Australia. When you were down under, did you ever see any of the effects of that, or was that kind of outside where you were operating?
Oh, it was a long way away from where I was. I was in a military installation.
Yeah, I never heard you mention it, but I do know a guy.
No Chinese there.
At that time, yes. I do know a guy who knows a lot about this particular subject and many others that are directly fastener related. He's Rob Lucas, currently with Lindstrom. I think you're on the line out there, Rob, are you?
Gung hoi fat choy. Happy New Year.
Wow. Thank you.
There's your Mandarin lesson for the day.
Muchas gracias.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's close.
You had your fill of Chinese New Year experiences, I heard.
I've had a few in the past. Yeah, it's been, many, many moons of traveling over there. You get to see all kinds of entertaining sights, and this is a big celebration for them. It's, basically now it's ending as we're speaking now. It's, the week is over. They're just getting back to work in most of Asia. There'll be a few places that are left behind for a few days, but it is over and the new year has begun.
Well, let's kick that around a little bit because it is a pretty huge event over there and it has an impact on this side of the pond as well. Folks, Rob Lucas is a great friend of the podcast. I think you were on the very first episode of Fully Threaded, actually, and at the time you were with Fidelis Fasteners, your own gig, but previous to that you were with Heads and Threads, now of course with Lindstrom, and a lot of experience in importing and related subjects. When was the last time you were over there?
For Chinese New Year in general, I was over there, in China in, I want to say it was September or October of 16. So not too far in the distant past.
Right, we would regard that as recent, okay?
Yeah, I haven't, I used to do it all the time, so me going on a rare occasion now I'm still getting used to it.
You were saying the celebration's wrapping up, and I know it varies from country to country, but the celebration starts, it's not the same date every year. Apparently it coincides with the new moon, usually at the end of January or the beginning of February sometime, and then but I thought it usually goes maybe to mid or late April. I mean, it carries on for a while, right?
It does indeed, yeah, but the actual festivity of it is a week. They party on until well into August.
Wow, we should all be over there.
Yeah, exactly.
So help me understand this part of it, though. I was reading that it's associated with the largest human migration, annual migration. I mean, what does that even mean? It wasn't explained. I mean, what's this human migration that they were talking about associated with the Chinese New Year?
I don't know where you heard that at. I'm not. If you've heard that, I have not. It's their. As far as I know, this is centuries and centuries old, and it's got some traditions to it that are basically tied to their ancestors. I think maybe a little bit to their worship or religion, and it's mainly running through all of mainland China and the bulk of Asia, less India, for lack of a better purpose, or for lack of a better location. I'd say it's their major, it's probably their biggest holiday of the year, and it is a bash. They really, really, there's a family dinner, I think, on one night, then there's a big celebration where they go out and do street fair, food. There's another day where they get together with all friends and family, not just family, friends included too. And it's their good fortune and happiness celebration for prosperity in the upcoming year. I haven't heard about a migration of it.
Maybe the migration is their movement back to their family, to see their family.
I think that's what it was talking about.
Oh, yeah, that's a different animal. Now that used to be, it's calmed down now, but it used to be, as recent as a decade ago, if not sooner, especially in mainland China, they would have the folks who have came to the industrial areas, which is basically that 50-mile strip against the seaboard, and they came from inland China to work. They have to travel back. Everyone travels back to their families during this Chinese New Year. So what I used to see happening was people would leave the factory to go home and never to return. So there was this unemployment ratio where there was a relearning curve of how to get employees back into the swing of things or hiring new employees. Because these guys would, basically they'd made up enough money over the course of the year. When they went back home, they didn't return. They took the money they had and they started to farm or do something else with it. That's kind of changed. It's not quite as significant anymore because these folks are recognizing that they can get paid. It's consistent, and people that get money like money. So, they're tending to come back to the same factories. There's a little bit of a problem with that because now you've got the guy who worked there saying, hey, I want a raise. And if you don't give me a raise, I'll go somewhere else. But there's no more of this, I'm going to work a year and jump ship. So it's you're getting a lot of more and more folks who are coming back to the same role they had prior to the new year. Maybe that's what they're referring to as migration.
Okay.
That also jives with what Harry Moser was saying in terms of the salary leverage and the general conditions over there. So that makes a little bit of sense. It's the year of the rooster.
It is indeed. I'll leave it at that. I won't give it any other slang terms.
Thank you. We have a family-rated podcast, okay?
It is PG, occasionally PG-13. Thank you, Brian.
All right, I'm just looking after everyone.
But that explains a little bit of the interruption in the fastener business too, doesn't it? I mean, they plan around this event every year and expect that things are going to slow down. And what is it, maybe like a 2-week interruption overall, and then things get back to normal. And so I guess we are working in a new normal world these days, but you're saying that things are basically going to stabilize here pretty soon.
Well, when I was using that reference, it was more towards mainland China. Taiwan is basically back in the saddle now. They're gone for, approximately 4 to 5 days of celebration. They're back to work. China, because of the migration, quote unquote, we talked about, there's a little longer of a delay, and it's kind of calmed down. I wouldn't say that it's completely calmed down, but it used to be, upwards of 3+ weeks, and now we're down to a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I would assume by this time next week, everybody in mainland China is, essentially back to business as usual.
So you were saying you visited there in the fall. Did you get to compare notes with folks over there about their impressions on, I guess, which would have been at that time the upcoming U.S. presidential elections? What were the thoughts you heard?
I did. There was, I talked to those folks, most of them daily. But while I was there in person, there was a whole lot of scuttlebutt about, hey, what if Trump becomes president? Is he going to kill us? And I think a part of that stems from, they're on closed circuit television. So, they're limited to what information they get from the outside world. But the thought process was that, at that time, Trump had said he was going to, basically put some type of a restraint on China, who was, quote unquote, manipulating currency. And I think that the way that was spun into Asia was, oh my gosh, the U.S. is going to, basically cut us off or raise duties so high that we won't be competitive, we'll be out of business. And there was a lot of discussion about, hey, can that happen? Now, of course, there's still that risk and there's that potential, but there's also some reality tied to this. And when we look at it from the world of specifically fasteners, it's more and more unlikely that could happen. Now, yeah, they could certainly raise duties and put some anti-dumping on things like that. But the reality of it is the capacity in the States isn't there, as far as manufacturing goes. You do have some U.S. manufacturing, but it's not here today. So, what are you going to do? Tariff somebody and duty them until you can't get product? That's unlikely too. And obviously it's been kind of proven to some extent that the Chinese aren't really manipulating their currency. They're actually trying to, keep theirs afloat and propping it up. So I think that there's, the closed circuit television side of it gives people a different perception than we saw. And of course that was prior to, a formal election. We're in a much different state today.
So you're saying they're inundated with fake news? Is that it, Rob?
No. I'm not saying it's fake news. I'm saying they probably don't get enough news, Donald.
Thank you. They don't get the right news. They probably get enough, but they get a different slant on everything.
Yeah, they get what the government wants them to see. And I think a lot of that was, look at this evil villain Trump who was talking about crushing China and pulling us away from all the business. Then that's me condensing it. I think there was a lot of that going on. Now, what has happened since then is a little different. I think it's less of a worry. There's been some steel price increases and things like that have happened. And a part of that's probably due to, contracts, demand, and of course, China reevaluating not only their currency, but their place in the world. So, tomorrow will be different than yesterday, as always.
Well, you could argue that if you looked at a lot of the social media, even in the US, that we were being fed a different slant on all the news items as well.
Well, we're still getting slanted. We don't know what look at today.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm thinking particularly with an item that turned up doesn't have to do with fasteners, but has to do with Syrian refugees in Australia. And of all the countries in the world, the last one who can afford to make any comments about immigration is Australia. They ran a white Australia policy for like 40 years where only white people could immigrate to Australia. Not even a brown New Zealander could go to Australia, actually, as an immigrant.
Really?
Really is right. That's why they had Greeks and Italians only.
Wow.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it ran up into the 60s.
Well, you can make arguments like that all day, Bri, but look at Saudi Arabia, Jordan, several others. I think you got a better case to be made there. But let's move on. You mentioned, Rob, also the price increases, the material price increases. And is there any follow-up on that? I mean, we've heard some comments associated with the January FDI. Some of our U.S. distributors are kind of starting to sweat a little bit. Are we looking at more hikes? What's coming?
Well, I don't have my crystal ball. If I was a betting man, we've seen raw material increase in Asia. There's no two ways about that. And it's, from November until really the end of December, it was almost such an unstable environment that some suppliers wouldn't even quote until it settled back down. I assumed that would settle down prior to the Chinese New Year. It did, but that doesn't mean that it's over. I think that, dependent on all of the things that are going to happen politically, as well as with, freight and steam vessels going across the ocean, all of those things are a factor in what the cost of steel does. So my guess would be that we aren't done seeing increases, but I don't want to scare anybody. I think that, we'll probably see a couple more this year. And when I say this year, I mean all 17. There's, an adjustment that needs to be in place right now for the new year. And then probably maybe one or two after that. China Steel is going to make another announcement. I'm certain that China Bao Steel will make an announcement again somewhere in the summertime. And those will, again, be reflective of what the economy does, what the demand does, and what the currencies are doing. The dollar is still pretty strong, so that changes the landscape a little bit too, versus the yuan, even the NT and things like that.
Right. We were reading the Scanwell newsletter that came through just the other day, and they were talking though about the number of ships passing through is decreasing because of decreasing demand on this side. Now, how does that jive with the price hikes? I mean, we're trying to understand this in terms of very simple dynamics, supply and demand and everything. Obviously, it's much more complicated than that. I mean, what's happening? How do you evaluate that?
Well, I don't know if there's less demand than there has been. I mean, that's just evident. Think about it. Drive around. What's really being done? There's not a whole lot of things that would indicate that there's some uptick in demand. We don't see a lot of infrastructure rebuild. the housing market's back in the more positive side now, but it seems like there's a housing shortage. So does that mean equate to they're going to build more houses? It really comes down to consumer use and what's going on out in the market. I just don't see that today. So I would say that we're still relatively low, but my gut would be that we're going to start to see a pickup here, in not only in construction but demand. But less ships means more money. It's going to cost more money in freight to get things here. That's just a given.
Yeah, good point. Okay.
And I think that's you had I forget the name, it was Hanjin or somebody went bankrupt. One of the ship carriers. That was, billions of dollars and stuff around the globe that, went belly up. I think that all of the other carriers are looking at that, trying to find ways to keep themselves solvent, trying to minimize the amount of risk that they have. Obviously, nobody wants to move a boat across the pond that's empty. And so, they're going to do what they can to make themselves, a few dollars and make their business more economical, which means, again, more cost increases, I would suspect. I think that's probably pretty accurate, and I think Scanwell will, what they're hinting towards there is probably the same.
Well, that's what this newsletter is saying, too. I mean, they're really not putting a cap on it. They're just saying strap in, and we'll keep you advised.
Yeah. And, that has nothing to do with, the cost of steel. That has to do with, what the carriers want to do, what fuel's going to do, those kind of things. Where is that going to go? What we look at from a fastener standpoint is really raw material cost. Where's it going? Because that's going to indicate to us what the average cost per pound for steel is going to be. And then, of course, we have to factor in, if you're an importer, you have to factor in whatever that freight cost may be. But typically that's negotiated price that's locked in at some point during the course of the year in general. So you have a much better feel for where the year's going with your freight than you do with steel, because they can change that weekly if they want to. Hell, they can change it daily if they want to. And we were seeing that in November, December, where pricing was changing, said sometimes, twice a day or at least every day in Asia. So it's calmed down dramatically since then, but I think we're going to see some more over the next 8 to 10 months easily. And really, guys, that's, as much as people don't like to hear about cost increases, we've been in a really, really flat market as far as costs go for a very long time. And I remember prior to 2008, the average steel increase was, double digits in a year. So if we see some cost increases this year, it doesn't shock me. The question is going to be how high will they be? And I don't have the answer to that, but I would venture somewhere in the mid-teens.
Well, you've been around this industry for a long time, and you've seen a lot, and you interface with distributors all the time. What's your feel for how these guys are set up? I mean, do most of them are most of them in a good position to pass these price hikes through? Because let's face it, the industry as a whole, we've been suffering from margin squeeze over time, and I think everybody's looking for an opportunity to pick a couple of points back up. I mean, are these guys by and large set up for that, or is it just too hard to say? Is it more case by case?
Well, it's not a hobby. So I think that if they're getting a cost increase, they're going to have to pass it on. Nobody's going to be able to just, swallow this. And I think that, that we're in a business that traditionally has been everyone browbeats everybody for the lowest possible cost. Yeah. So when things like this come through, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. It's going to have to be passed on. Now, when you say, are they in the position? I think that's a more case by case. I think that they're, in general, most everybody from a distribution standpoint has minimized the amount of liability and inventory that they possibly can have, just because of what we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years. And that equates to not a whole lot of on-the-shelf product. Now, there's plenty of it out there. I mean, there's not plenty, but there's distributors that have plenty of product, and there's some that don't. That is going to indicate, I think, by case, what they choose to do. Are they going to buy this because they have the gut instinct that costs are going to go up, or are they going to ride it and see what happens? I mean, you're going to get some distributors who are going to go, okay, I think pricing will go up, let's load up on inventory. And you're going to have others who say, let's see what happens, we'll play it by ear. So that's really going to dictate, I think, case by case and by their business demands what they choose to do.
That's the distribution game, right?
That is indeed the distribution game.
Right. So for some of them, it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? Because you can't sort of wait too long if you're bringing in, multi-container loads of a certain thing. If you're one of the big masters, then you've got to be a little bit careful playing this in case you run out, in case something goes wrong with the deliveries.
Yeah, and I think the there's the two-pronged spear there is, if I buy it all now because I think pricing is going up, then I buy okay. Or what happens if it doesn't go up? Then I bought too much, I don't need it. Or what happens if it goes down, you're stuck with So everybody has to play it by what their demand is, which is why I don't see a whole monstrous uptick in the country as far as buying goes. However, I think that based off of the political landscape and based off of everything that we've been seeing and hearing about, we're in for, I would think, a better, more positive 17 than we've seen in 16 or 15, which, in turn would indicate to me that people are going to have a little more usage and a little more demand. So I would think that folks are going to up the ante on what they hold.
Well, hopefully we'll see that. That's good news for all of us. I mentioned that you interface with lots of distributors across the board, and are you seeing a lot more demand from your customers for U.S.-made product, and therefore are you expanding your relationship with domestic manufacturers and suppliers, or is that still a wash, or what are you seeing?
I would say it's still a wash. I mean, there is a portion of business out there in the States that is, has some requirement to be, U.S. made. And we have customers who, require us to do that. So we comply with what they need. Our core business obviously is importation of fasteners from all over the globe. And, our goal is to find the best low-cost supplier, that old hat. But there, I think, will be, some constant for a U.S. domestic-made product for perpetuity, go on forever. We do try to comply with that. We look at avenues on how we can support that, what relationships we can get with U.S.-made manufacturers to support our customer base, and I'm sure that most everybody does as well. I don't know if that will increase based off of the political landscape. There's the thought process that if the new president wants to increase the military size, that would mean you're going to have to start manufacturing more military equipment. Most MS and NES product is called out for domestic made only. So that would, I guess in one fashion indicate a higher demand for domestic. Infrastructure to the U.S., if we're going to start working on bridges and railways and roads, will there be some new demand for domestic only for rebar and things like that? That's yet to be seen. I don't necessarily think that's the case. And again, all of that goes back to what capacity is in the U.S. to make all of this. And there isn't the capacity to meet all the demand, even in this slow economy.
Yeah. Don't discount that there could be some follow-on effect, though, from President Trump's harping on, buy American and manufacture in America. I mean, presumably at some stage it will have a slight effect on people actually changing their mindset to try and do that. I mean, albeit they may not be able to.
I agree. I mean, I think that, the more that you require it, the more it's going to be more attractive to folks. But I think if you look at the landscape today, if somebody said, I have to have all my product made domestically, there's not only a cost disadvantage to that, there's potential for finding the right supply base in the States that can do that and do it in the time fashion that you need. It's a capacity issue. It used to be, look at Rockford. As we speak right now, the Rockford products is having one of the largest auctions on equipment, because they're gone. This is a much different landscape than it was, 15 to 20 years ago. Rockford was a hotbed of heading, and now it's dead. There are very few, in the bigger scheme of things, there are very, very few manufacturers of fasteners in the U.S. Because we have become, over a long period of time, an assembly-based country. We're no longer a manufacturing company. So if the landscape is going to change, and as Brian has stated, there's some want and some desire to do that, I think it's a slower, more gradual process. I mean, guys, my first job was on a header. The idea of getting those people that are educated in that type of manufacturing, getting the workforce in place to do it, in itself is going to be one heck of a task, let alone the investment, the money, and the want to do it. So there's a lot of things in that I would say, yes, there could be a potential for it to, this quote-unquote reshoring to actually happen, but I think it's going to be a very, very slow process, if at all.
Okay, I'm going to ponder on that one, all right?
We got to get you set up with Harry Moser. We should have put you guys together, Rob.
Well, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I just look at it from the standpoint of it's really hard to argue with what's already been put in place. It's one thing to say and speculate that, there's going to be some political steamroller that's going to come in and say that we're all going to have to buy U.S.-made parts. There's another part of that equation that says people are used to paying very little for fasteners. True. You make a fastener in the U.S., the labor laws, just the labor itself, are going to require your parts to be more expensive. That's a very tricky wicket. Mm-hmm. And the same argument can be said for RCA and Zenith when they made televisions here. That's why there's no televisions made in the U.S., because you can't make them as cheap as you can buy them overseas. So, Best Buy is full of people buying an $800 70-inch television. That's just the nature of what has happened over the last several decades. So trying to reinvent that now and trying to get a customer base that is so used to paying next to nothing for fasteners to pay much more when there's still an alternative out there may be a hell of a task to get them to accept.
Yeah, it takes a degree of re-education. I mean, that is, it is the case, particularly with American consumers are used to buying everything cheap, okay?
And the same goes for, fasteners. I've always had that. I've had people in the past go, you're one of those people that's ruined America because you moved everything. You've helped to move it to Asia. And I always use the television, speech as, my justification to it. If you want to, invest in a factory here that can make a television and you can make it for $800, I'll quit my job today and sell for you, and we'll make a fortune. But, if you think you can do that, let's get at it. But it probably can't be done because that's why it's all moved overseas, because their labor rates are much, much lower.
Yeah, well, you make a good point, Rob, and you made it before on the podcast, and the basic argument hasn't changed, and you can't deny it because we have to face reality. I mentioned bringing Harry on not because I thought it was going to be some kind of a throwdown match. I just think that it's theory meets reality, and it would be a very well-measured discussion, and I think everybody would be respectful and learn a lot because both sides seem to have very valid points.
I think that there's a real need for more U.S. manufacturing in the States. I do believe that, but I think that based off of what we all see right now and what is happening right now, there's either not enough of a torch lit behind someone's rear end to make that happen, or there's just not enough incentive to do that. And one of those two things has to happen in order for that to really start to take footing. And we haven't seen it yet.
No, but we can't write it off because we're still in the very early days. I mean, think about it. We're not even a month into a new presidency, and there's only so much that you can do in any given time.
That's right.
Well, then there's probably only so much that's possible.
Yeah.
But we will see.
Yeah, I mean, there's a degree of inertia that goes in the government.
Keep in mind, too, guys, in the bigger scheme of everything that is manufactured, made around the world, I think fasteners are probably the last thing people think of. It's clearly not important in the bigger scheme of things. So if there is going to be some direction on what is and isn't made in the U.S., fasteners will be drug along to it, but it's certainly not going to be a driving force. No one thinks of a screw when they go to, I'm going to go build microwaves. They don't think of the screws they go into it. They think of the microwaves and the sheet metal and the glass. Fasteners are the afterthought.
So this is how you drag us back down to reality, is it? With a bloody sledgehammer.
Well, yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Such is the nature of this little industry we call the fastener industry. Well, folks can catch up with you probably at some of the upcoming events. You are, of course, as we mentioned, with Lindstrom these days. Do you have an official title over there?
I'm the jack of all trades. I think my official title is VP of Business Development, but I play around with a lot of the suppliers overseas. I got my hands in with a bunch of the larger customers in the States, and I help out here and there. And Lindstrom is, I still stand by it. They got a lot of things to offer. We've got a packaging line, we've got a manufacturing line, and of course a distribution line. And we're bringing in, more and more new products all the time that, fall outside of that traditional, quote unquote Lindstrom metric RAM. So the task for us is to get all of the folks out there who buy fasteners and think about them to think about us in a bigger scheme other than just metric. Yeah. And I think that, the acquisitions we've done in the past and the things that we're doing in the future are all tying into a much bigger scope for Lindstrom.
Absolutely. And of course, last episode we covered the expanding geographic footprint of Lindstrom with the acquisition up there in Canada. So things are progressing for you guys. I was talking to Dick Ripley on the subject of, recently on the subject of trade events coming up. And he wouldn't confirm this, maybe you can, but is it true that you're building a third story on your booth out there in Vegas this year, or is that just a rumor? He kind of shied away when
I thought we were going to go 5. We don't just aim low. We're going up 5 or 6. We're thinking about having some type of a helicopter fly us in next year, and then we'll climb down a scaffolding.
You're going to have to place your booth very carefully to make sure you don't hit any of the rafters, actually.
Or maybe we'll have some type of an indoor roller coaster / vodka slide.
Right.
I like that, the Fastener Super Slide. We need one of those, and who knows, anything's possible at the new venue next year in Vegas, right?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting event. I know that. I've heard a lot of mixed signals, good and bad, about the location. So I think it's just a matter of, once you're there, you're there. And I think people are going to be, happy with whatever happens inside the show floor itself. It's just all of the things that go on,
right,
as far as lunch meetings and other meetings that people are a little bit more uncomfortable with. But again, that's change.
Right. Nobody really likes it, but we'll all see everybody there. That's happening, of course, in October in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's changed several times. It was at Bally's and at Mandalay, and it's moved quite a bit. So I don't think another move is going to kill anybody.
Well, we'll see you out there, Rob Lucas, with Lindstrom, and of course, I'm sure we'll talk to you ahead of that. But in any event, we'll look forward to it, and sure do appreciate you joining us on yet another episode. I think once again you're the most often interviewed person on the podcast, and we appreciate that. Over the years, you've been a great service to us in letting us know what's going on from kind of a unique perspective. So thanks, Rob.
We've had a lot of fun. And I'm more than happy to do it. Many more to come. Let's see if we can get you guys to be as gray as I am too. We'll get rock and roll on this.
Oh God! Where do you?
I got to get you guys overseas with me too.
Yeah, Brian's still holding on to his light brown hair as long as he can. It's getting very light, though.
It's very, very light.
Natural highlights.
Yeah, it is, right.
We got to get you guys over to a show in Taiwan or in China. I think that would be, so let's try to get a petition going to get you guys over into a Chinese fastener or a Taiwanese fastener show and do some on-the-floor interviews with these guys. That would really be something to listen to.
You know what? Assuming that the top half of this segment didn't piss off our would-be hosts too badly, then I think we'll take you up on that. Happy Chinese New Year, everybody.
Am I in the bottom half or the top half?
The top.
Oh, perfect. Just great. Well, I think it's a good idea if you guys were to go over there. I'd love to take you over, and we'll see the world of Asia firsthand, and you can see some factories and maybe see a show over there and compare it to what you guys hear and see or do over here.
We will chew on that one with you, Rob. And with that, we'll close this one out the same way we opened it, and that is by wishing everybody a happy Chinese New Year, Year of the Rooster. Rob Lucas, Lindstrom, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you soon.
Okay, matey.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back with more Fully Threaded Radio.
Talk radio for the fastener industry. It's not really all that bad for the most part. Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio.
What makes Lindstrom a leading specialty fastener master distributor? For years, you've known Lindstrom as the premier name in metric fasteners, with an expanded product line that now includes the largest assortment of fasteners and components of any master distributor. Today, Lindstrom means much more than metric. At Lindstrom, we're focused on a single goal: to bring our distributors the perfect combination of convenience, flexibility, value, and choice, delivered by the most experienced sales team in the industry. For inch or metric fasteners, standard or special, in any finish, all packed to your requirements, turn to Lindstrom, where we have what you need and deliver it the way you want. To learn more about Lindstrom and our expanded brand of value-added products and services, visit lindstromfastener.com or call a sales representative at 1-800-572-5550. Lindstrom, by any measure.
Did you know Mexico accounts for 34% of all trade in Latin America? Hi, everybody. It's Lynn Dempsey, here to announce the meeting point for the Latin American fastener industry. It's Mac Brooks Fastener Fair Mexico, which takes place on June 20th and 21st, 2017 in Mexico City. Fastener Fair Mexico attracts manufacturers, distributors, suppliers, and end users from across Latin America's fastest growing industries. With over 2,000 buyers, more than 200 exhibiting companies from around the world, and a highly informative distributor business development conference, this third edition of the show is set to be the biggest yet. As the leader in worldwide fastener exhibitions, Mac Brooks has pulled out all the stops to provide maximum value for any fastener distributor operating or considering doing business in Latin America. Don't miss Fastener Fair Mexico, June 20th and 21st in Mexico City. For booth space, details, and to register online, log on to www.fastenerfair.com/Mexico. That's fastenerfair.com/Mexico.
Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker. If you're listening to Fully Threaded, then you're no doubt aware of the FCH sourcing network found at fastenersclearinghouse.com. You've probably also heard about our legendary scrubber software that makes listing your inventory on FCH a snap. But have you heard about the new FCH SmartLink interface? With SmartLink, users of Business Edge, InSQL, and Distribution One have a new weapon in the war against excess inventory, because each of these platforms now links directly to the FCH Scrubber system through an automated interface. The best part is that this new tool is available at no additional charge to FCH members who use Business Edge, InSQL, or Distribution One. With SmartLink, you can keep your inventory listings up to date with the click of a button, so it's a win-win for all FCH users. The new FCH FastLink interface is really big news, and we'll be thrilled to have your company using it. Business Edge, InSQL, and Distribution One users should contact their software provider for details, or just call me, Brian Musker. You can reach me through the FCH website at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. That's fasteners with an S, and the S is for scrubber.
Hey guys, this is the one and only Rebecca Day of Exact Industries, and you're listening to my online fasting soul brothers, Brian and Eric, on Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, Bri, like I mentioned during the segment there with Rob, I think it actually might have been an interesting idea to get Harry Moser and Rob Lucas together during the same segment. I wish I would have thought of that.
Yep, actually, Harry made an interesting comment that I thought about a lot afterwards, but it's one you sort of forget in the hysteria of, making sure that we cut or tax imports to Mexico, and his view that there's such a large component of American sourcing in the Mexican imported goods, or the goods that we import from Mexico into the US, that the significance is much less than the dollar numbers would indicate. I thought that his view was that that we're better off importing from Mexico than we are from Asia, because that already includes a serious component of our own products. It was sort of an interesting one to think about.
Yeah, I agree. I've never actually heard the justification for supporting nearshoring before. I mean, I'd heard the term. I really never appreciated why he supported that so much if it was impossible to bring it back to the U.S., but I get it now. Good point.
Yeah, it was.
I tell you, overall, though, my feeling is I hope that they can get as much accomplished in the reshoring department by way of making the U.S. an attractive place to do business. In other words, by having the capacity, having the environment, meaning low regulations, low taxes, so that businesses will naturally want to come here rather than using more coercive tools such as tariffs and tax credits and all of that different stuff. I mean, that's where it becomes very hard for me to support it, because I don't know, I just get a bad feeling, Bri, when I start thinking about putting all those taxes on products, either direction.
Well, that's true, but I mean, that's sort of supporting your own home. I mean, as Harry points out, those countries They impose those taxes on goods from the US. We just don't happen to see them, okay? Everyone's involved in some degree of protectionism. This whole idea of the free world doesn't exist. It's not. It's in the La La Land books. But the truth is that Chinese companies have a subsidy to enable them to do business with the US and make sure they beat US companies in price. So why don't anyone talk about that in the public? I don't think big taxes suit anything because it just makes goods more expensive overall. But certainly the US can do more to improve the state of business in the country. And hopefully the new administration can spend a little less time tweeting, a little more time encouraging the Congress to improve the viability of US businesses.
Well, there's something I think we can all agree on. I'd like to thank Harry Moser of the Reshoring Initiative, also Rob Lucas with Lindstrom. Marc Strandquist, Executive Vice President of Würth, joined Mike McNulty on the Fastener News Report today. Thank you, gentlemen. And as always, Carmen Vertullo had the Fastener Training Minute. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Stelfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast. And Lindstrom. Lindstrom, by any measure. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio, 3Q USA-made fasteners. Buckeye Fasteners, Fastenal, Fastener Technology International, Fastener Fair Mexico, InSequel Software, Indie Industries, The Würth Group, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. Hey everyone, we sure do appreciate you listening to the episode today, and we'd like to hear your comments, feedback, and anything else you want to throw our way. Do so at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com, and we're also out there on Twitter. The handle there, Fully Threaded.
Yeah, that could also include comments about subjects that we should be addressing or getting people to comment on.
All of the above.
Right.
We mentioned earlier in the podcast that there are more and more people from more and more locations around the world listening to Fully Threaded Radio, which we certainly appreciate. And the number of folks that are downloading the podcast through iTunes or putting it on their Android device. There's instructions on how to do that right on the fullythreaded.com website. And it's a good option for you, especially if you do a lot of traveling. If you're in the sky, on the road, check it out. Hey, Bri, we've covered quite a bit of ground on today's episode, the Chinese New Year episode. And we're going to throw one more on the pile. This is another story that comes to us by way of Industrial Distribution Magazine on their website. This article was by Jack Keogh. And the title, The Increasing Threat of Amazon Business to Distributors.
Yeah.
This is one we haven't touched on for a few episodes, but we always keep our eye out there on that big elephant in the room, that being Amazon.
Yep.
This piece begins, the question many distributors have been asking for some time is whether or not Amazon Business should be considered a friend or foe. The answer seems to be foe, after attendees at the National Association of Wholesale Distributors Executive Summit heard a lengthy presentation from Rob Green, Director and GM for Amazon Business, who was a general session speaker at the event, and that took place earlier this month. Amazon Business, Green said, is growing at 20% per month, and the current number of active sellers apparently is in excess of, get this, Bri, 45,000.
Well, no one can discredit Amazon, okay? I mean, despite all the prognostications of how problems with their business model, they don't make any money. The fact is that Jeff Bezos has got big plans for Amazon, and none of them have gone wrong yet, okay? There's a few things missing in their whole idea of, I guess, product selection. However, there's no question their distribution mechanism is amazing.
That's right, and their fulfillment.
Yeah.
Well, they've got some challenges with fasteners, as we know, because at least in the larger quantities, I mean, it's heavy stuff. But we're going to keep our eye on it, and we're doing this as a public service for our audience. And in fact, this article does touch on the failure of the predecessor of Amazon Business, which was Amazon Supply. Don't forget back in 2015, they kind of put that in the can and then reinvented it as Amazon Business and publicly targeted all of basically industrial distribution. So fastener distributors were looking around saying, geez, should we worry about this or not? And all we're saying is, don't take your eye off of these guys.
Right. A little bit of arrogance could be their biggest problem, but they certainly have to be carefully watched.
Well, arrogance is one thing, but firepower is another. And and there's another thing. I'll read a quote here from this story. I think most of us will agree on this. Quote, "There's been a tremendous demographic shift in the workplace," Green said, noting that there are 83 million millennials in the U.S. They're buying online through their cell phones and taking their buying habits into their businesses. So he's not telling us anything we don't know, Bri.
Oh, I know. I mean, we rely on these same millennials to be the ones who, use FCH because of their preference for using the web as opposed to other means of looking for things.
Exactly. We talk to them all the time, and we talk about them all the time, and let's face it, they're the future. Well, once again, we're suggesting it's worth keeping our eyes open, but in terms of the fastener industry, I think they have a few challenges to overcome. I'll read one last quote here, though, to give you one more thing to think about on this subject. Quote, "One of the best ways to compete with Amazon is to sell to Amazon," Green said, adding that by doing so, distributors would not need to worry about holding inventory, e-commerce, or fulfillment functions. So it's almost like one of those deals you can't refuse.
Right. It's a bit of a self-serving comment, though, isn't it? Because he's really saying, well, you should really cut all your profit out because we'll do it for you. Okay.
Oh, exactly. It's like a guy knocks on your door and says, pity if this warehouse should burn down.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what he's saying.
But that's our role here in the fastener industry, to talk turkey to fastener distributors.
Oh, I'm not sure we should be talking turkey, should we?
Well, why is that?
Because this is the year of the Scrooster.
That it is. And you set us up, Bri, to put this episode of Fully Threaded Radio in the can.
Right.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. We hope to hear from you very soon. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws, keep your eyes open, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you next month, okay?
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
Hey, Bri, how about the rabbit? Chicks dig rabbits.
Yeah, I never have liked being a rat.